All right, doing a basic size comparison of Winnerwell stainless steel. These are the Woodlander model stoves. There's plenty of videos on the internet that really talk about how great of stoves these are, so this is just more of a strict size comparison for different sizes, the large and medium, between the same model of stove. So this is the large and this is the medium, and I'll just kind of go over some stats here in a second. But I was really kind of stuck between the two sizes, and what I'm doing here today is just figuring out what size I want. I wanted something that could still horse pack, but was not too bulky to put on a side saddle of a horse, but at the same time big enough to make sure that you're not stocking the stove every couple hours, which was a huge issue for me before. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, here's a top-down comparison of the large on the left and the medium on the right. They're both pretty good sized stoves. I put a can of Coke or a can of Sprite on there just for comparison's sake. Other things you can do to kind of visually compare on a video here would be looking at really these top center discs, which are the same diameter. And you can see how much more really surface area for the cooktop that you're getting on the large over here versus medium on the other side. I would totally agree with all the videos on the internet that these are pretty solid stainless steel construction, really good quality welding, good build quality, good workmanship, especially considering the stuff's from China. I've never really seen anything that was built like this from China, so somebody really stepped it up with the execution and quality control. But let's go over some sizes here. All right, so for the large here, let me get my tape. For the large, I'm just going to give you some rough estimates because the estimates on the website are a little bit difficult. But for these Winnerwell stoves, top dimension, I'll say with the door is roughly 19 for the large. The width, we'll say roughly 10. You could say 11 with the glass on each side that overhangs. And then for vertical height, we'll give it about, we'll say about an 11, 10 and a half, 11 with kind of when the legs are folded up. So I get you a rough size. And then for the medium, we're gonna give it a width of roughly 8.5, 9 inches with the glass. And for lengthwise, we're getting, we'll call it 15.5, 16. And then for the vertical height, we're getting roughly, we'll call it 8, maybe 9 with the legs folded up. And then other thing to consider is really the cooktop surface, or I'll call it the sock drying surface. So this width on the medium, we'll call it 21. And then this way, we'll give it 11. Versus the large cooktop surface, we'll give it 25.5, so pretty significantly bigger. And then we'll call it 14 for the length. As far as other stats go for the medium on the right versus the large on the left, so other thing to consider would be the diameter of the chimney stacks. So one of them is 2.5 inches diameter, and the other one is 3.5 on the large. And that's just diameter. I mean, volume wise, it seems to be that this 3.5 volume wise can move just a lot more air. It's kind of hard to tell on camera, but again, that's 3.5 inch diameter. So looking at surface area, in volume, it's a pretty big difference. The other thing was the difference in height. So the total height difference, which comes into play more when you have like a tall tent like I have. So the height difference, so the medium smokestack's going to be 7 foot 8 inches, and then or 92 inches tall, and then the large one's going to be 8 foot 11 inches or 107 inches tall, which again is a more big deal when you have kind of larger tents. This is a tent, just for comparison's sake, I got off Amazon. This isn't a tent review, but this tent is 6 foot 9 inches tall, and then 13 1 in diameter. It's got a stove jack. Picked it up for $100. It was like a generic brand. It says Waldmate on it. Heiko in China, but it seems to be decent build quality. I think it'll at least get me through my trip. So anyway, back to the stove. Something else that I thought was super important that they brought up on other videos was really burning and volume capacity. So just to compare the two, and this is really important for most people that aren't really harvesting their own wood, but they're buying their own wood and splitting it and drying it at least, would be standard stove length. So this is about a 16-inch piece of wood, and you can see that it doesn't really fit. So if you're buying any of your wood and then splitting it to fit in these smaller areas, especially if you're car camping, that'll be a big issue, because you're gonna have to cut these both lengthwise and then split them down to size, versus that same piece of wood in here in the large. Boom, goes in, no problem. Close the stove, walk away. So definitely more convenient from that standpoint if you're buying any hardwood. And then just was for like total volume, so I'll put some pop cans in there just so you can really see. But got a pop can here, fits in there pretty easily. And we'll put a pop can here. This one I gotta kind of more work it in. Try doing a better comparison here. Hopefully I'm not shaking the camera too much. So quite a big difference up and down. I feel like the one on the left, the large, you can really stack and not have to wake up every 2 hours during the night. So that was a big thing for me. Both of them are gonna have elevated fire grates to prevent you from burning out the bottom of the stove by keeping some of the hot coals up on the grates. This grate obviously is a little bit heavier gauge. It might last a little bit longer. Both of them I think are really well in terms of build quality. And then both stoves, of course, have the viewing windows on the side. You can take these nuts off and then replace the glass in case you bang them up during transport. Any issues there. The front of the doors is going to be exactly the same for each. Seems to have quite a bit of adjustability in terms of airflow. Kind of unique design. Yeah, so ultimately for me, I'm gonna end up going with the large, just because of the ability to fit any standard firewood in there. And then really I just think it's gonna burn a whole lot longer in the nighttime. You can be able to stack it really more, not only in terms of length, but really in terms of height of the fireboxes. So I think large is the way to go for me. But if you don't have a horse, you still want a decent quality stove, but you still wanted to pack it, you know, this medium is definitely still packable, and that's about 20 pounds versus 30 pounds. So that's a big difference if you're packing it in on foot versus horseback. But both are really sick stoves. Would recommend both. I'm just gonna burn them up and see what they're like, but I think that they're gonna both work out really well. Again, here's kind of like a size comparison, just looking at really those removable tops, just so you can see kind of a different size of the surface area of the stove and the surface area of the cooktop. Both of these lids remove, so you can get in there. You can cook directly over the fire, or you can do that to get access to put kindling in. But okay, now I'll set them in the tent so you guys can see what they kind of look like. Okay, we're in the tent, so just wanted to show a difference in kind of the stovepipe diameter. So this would be a can of Coke. So effectively that output is about a can of Coke, and of course that diameter is going to affect your vacuum draw when you got that rising heat. So bigger the diameter of the pipe, more flow you're going to get, probably a little more heat. And this one on the large, you can see that there's quite a bit of volume around it. So that 3.5 inches versus 2.5 inches over here makes quite a bit of difference. And then here's me sitting in the cot spot of my stove, or cot spot of my tent over here, and you can see the relative size difference. There's gonna be the stove jack. I would say that in this tent, definitely the large stove is not too big. Another reason why I went with the large stove versus the medium is ultimately the large stove is going to be big enough to put in a wall tent. So someday I'm going to get a wall tent, and when the family expands, and something a little bigger, a little sturdier than this teepee, and then the large will definitely have no problem heating up that wall tent versus the medium I got a feeling might struggle a little bit, but who knows. I think both will probably be sufficient, but I think large is the way to go for me. Okay, now we're going to do a relative size comparison for really kind of carrying these guys. So both of these guys are going to have fold up legs. They do lock and spot. Both are pretty compact. This one you could definitely probably, I'd say, squeeze into a backpack if you had to, vertically of course. This one not so much. You probably have to put it in like a army sack or big open top duffel. Both are very carryable for short distances. 30 versus 20 pounds, at least for hand carrying it. Definitely makes a difference. Here's kind of a size comparison from the side. Yeah, pretty sweet stoves. Definitely like the purchase, but I'll probably be sending the medium back. Of course, if money wasn't an option, I'd probably keep both, but yeah, large is the way to go, at least for me.